The chair across from her stayed empty as the minutes dragged on, its silence louder than the soft clink of cups and the low hum of afternoon voices, and in that quiet, something inside her cracked open, because this was not just a blind date that hadn't arrived, it was another reminder of how easy it was to be forgotten when hope had already been stretched thin. She had chosen the café carefully, a warm place with brick walls and tall windows that let daylight spill across wooden tables, a place that felt safe enough to risk believing again, and as she wrapped both hands around her cooling cup, she tried to convince herself that waiting a little longer still made sense. Her phone lay face down, untouched, because she had checked it too many times already, and every glance had deepened the hollow in her chest. She had told herself not to expect much, that blind dates rarely worked out, but the truth was she had arrived with a quiet, fragile hope that this time might be different, that this time someone would choose to show up. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that happen when people least expect them, take a moment right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness, because stories like this remind us why those beliefs still matter. She had not always been this cautious, this measured with her expectations, but life had taught her to be. Years earlier, she had built her world around another person, trusted promises that felt unbreakable, and then watched them dissolve without warning, leaving her to rebuild herself piece by piece. Dating after that had felt like learning to walk again on unfamiliar ground, each step uncertain, each fall quietly bruising. Friends had encouraged her to try again, to put herself out there, and after weeks of hesitation, she had finally agreed to a blind date arranged by someone who swore this man was different, reliable, kind. 2 out of 6, serious about connection. That word serious had stuck with her, had followed her as she picked out her dress, as she styled her hair, as she walked into the café trying to breathe through her nerves. Time moved forward without mercy. 10 minutes late turned into 20, then 30, and the empty chair across from her seemed to mock her optimism. She imagined excuses he might give, traffic, a forgotten meeting, a sudden emergency, but none of those possibilities softened the sting of being left alone in a place meant for two. She considered leaving, rehearsed the walk of quiet dignity she would make toward the door, but something held her there, perhaps stubbornness, perhaps the simple exhaustion of always being the one who walked away. She stayed, staring out the window, watching people pass by with places to be and people to meet, wondering why showing up felt so hard for some and so lonely for others. That was when she noticed the 2 little girls standing a few steps away, their small hands resting on the edge of a nearby table as they whispered to each other and glanced in her direction with open curiosity. They were dressed alike in bright red cardigans over neat white dresses, their hair curled softly around their faces, and there was something disarmingly brave about the way they watched her, as if the world had not yet taught them to hide their interest. A moment later, an empty chair scraped gently across the floor as one of them shifted closer, and before she could overthink it, she smiled at them, a reflex born of kindness rather than intention. The smile was returned instantly, wide and genuine, the kind that carried no expectations. Their presence altered the air around her, pulling her attention away from the empty seat across the table and towards something lighter, warmer. She felt herself relax, her shoulders lowering as the tight knot in her chest loosened just a little. The girls sat there, swinging their feet, content simply to exist. Near her, and in that simple closeness, she felt a connection she hadn't anticipated. She wondered where their parents were, why they seemed so comfortable approaching a stranger, but she did not question it out loud. Instead, she let herself enjoy the moment, the gentle interruption to her disappointment. As minutes passed, it became clear that her blind date was not coming, and acceptance settled over her like a heavy coat. She reached for her cup again, now mostly cold, and took a slow sip, telling herself that leaving would be easier than waiting any longer. Just as she shifted in her seat, preparing to stand, a woman approached the table, her expression both apologetic and relieved. She was the girl's guardian, she explained, running late after a long morning, grateful that someone had kept an eye on them while she was briefly distracted. The gratitude in her face was genuine, and in it, the woman felt seen in a way she hadn't expected to that day. The guardian lingered, making polite conversation, and something in her tone carried the weight of someone who had been tired for a long time. She spoke about juggling responsibilities, about days that felt too full and nights that felt too quiet, and the woman at the table recognized herself in those words. It surprised her how easily the conversation flowed, how natural it felt to speak honestly with someone she had just met. There was no pressure, no performance, no need to impress, only the shared understanding of what it meant to carry more than one could easily hold. Eventually, the guardian gathered the girls, thanking her once more before heading toward the door, and as they left, the café felt different again, quieter but not as heavy as before. The woman sat there for a moment longer, absorbing what had just happened, and realized that despite being stood up, she did not feel as defeated as she had expected. There was a softness in her chest, a reminder that even on days when plans fell apart,